Hi, I'm back and completely rebranded. Welcome to Structure. Today we are going to be talking about a subject that I've wanted to discuss for a really long time. If you have watched any videos on my channel, you know that I started reading CIA declassified documents. So today we're actually going to be reading one of my favorites, and it's called The Invisible Third World War. I'm going to be having this pop up for you guys, so I'll also link a copy of this in the description. So if you're curious and you want to check it out for yourself, you can read along while I'm reading. So The Invisible Third World War is kind of, it's basically an article that was written by Walter Ballard and Richard Sutton. If you don't know who those people are, it's okay. Neither did I. Richard Sutton is a Canadian computer scientist. He's a professor at the computing science at the University of Alberta and a research scientist at Keen Technologies. And Walter Ballard is actually deceased. He was an American leader in the counterculture movement in the 60s, the founder and editor of the first underground newspaper in New York City, and he was author of the book Operation Mind Control. That book is worth a read. When I say once you go down that rabbit hole, you will never come back, you're never going to come back. So I'll also link that below. It's a really long read. So, just buckle up and prepare. So in this article that was declassified by the CIA, it was declassified on 12/21 in 2011. So it's not very long. It's 4 pages, but obviously I want to kind of comment on certain things. So I'm just going to go through each section and take it section by section. It's sectioned off into different little, subjects about the Invisible Third World War. And if you're watching this and you're wondering, what is that? So obviously there were other world wars. There were 2 other world wars. Those were physical ones. This goes into, and in quite detail, about the Third World War, which has already been waged. So we are in war right now, and many people don't know that. They like to say, we're going to go to war. War's going to happen. They're always fear-mongering with that stuff. Well, hate to break it to you, rascal, but we're already in war, and we've been in war for a while, and it's actually the war for the mind of man, which they say verbatim in this article. So, and go ahead, start. I'm going to skip down 2 paragraphs because the first 2 paragraphs in here just kind of go over the article itself. It's an editor's note about it. You're welcome to read that yourself if you'd like to. Nothing juicy in it, but we're just going to start. Now, you're probably going to need to make sure you have something to grip onto when you start having spurts of anger while I'm reading this, because that's kind of what happened to me while I was reading it. Maybe get a drink or something. It's a lot. This is a very loaded document. All right. So, in the as-yet unpublished manuscript, The Invisible Third World War, Ballard and co-author Richard Sutton reveal that the world is already locked in deadly invisible warfare, fighting for the ultimate prize, the mind of man. When the first atomic bomb was detonated in Alamogordo, New Mexico in 1944, the warriors of the modern world experienced a flash of insight that changed the nature of war forever. The men who built the bomb realized that civilian populations were now unavoidable targets, and that conventional war had now become a dangerous trigger which could catalyze an earth-destroying retaliation with nuclear weapons. Now, I want to stop there, and this is a point I like to make to people that when they're like, oh, they're going to destroy the world, you don't realize that means that they're destroying themselves. So you got to always keep in mind that when they're talking about, war against each other, and it's always something like that, most of the objective is just to get the general public on their side and convince them, because they don't want to ruin their lives too. These people are narcissists, okay? They care about themselves more than anything. Such old-fashioned methods of warfare as gunpowder employed by revolutionaries fighting protracted conflicts were suddenly perceived as potential threats which could ignite the nuclear holocaust. The only safe way to wage war, the warriors realized, was to wage it silently. Invisible warfare, or IW as it came to be known, became a necessity. By the end of World War II, IW research had begun in earnest, and the ensuing decades, modern warriors developed a number of insidious methods of subduing enemy populations without their ever knowing that a war had even begun. Secret invisible weapons now pose a more ominous threat to life than even thermonuclear holocaust. Not only have these weapons been developed without the knowledge of their intended victims, but worse, they cannot even be detected at the very moment they are murdering or robotizing civilian populations. Only if the veil of secrecy is lifted will the free people of the world have any hope of surviving long enough to liberate themselves from the bleak, unlivable future promised by the technology of the invisible war. They ain't joking here, okay? They're already starting out and telling you, and this was in 1985. Okay, so they're already telling you, like, hey, we're waging a war on you and you're not even going to know it's happening. So let's start with the first weapon. Chemical and biological warfare, the secret plagues. Now, if you lived through the past 2 years, which I'm guessing you're not 2 years old and watching this, so you did, then you kind of know what happened with the pandemic and everything like that. And this is going to really paint a picture for you when I get into this. So I'm rubbing my hands like an evil squirrel because this is some good stuff. Okay. Governments do experiment on their own citizens. In the Soviet Union, the victims never get a chance to talk about it. But in a supposedly free society, if they are left in good enough shape to remember that they have been victimized, citizens can not only talk about it, they can even sue their government. A wide range of invisible warfare experiments conducted on unwitting citizens by the United States government has already been exposed. In a number of experiments, a secret CIA Army team infected Americans with deadly germs from 1949 to 1969. Equipped with nasal filters and other protective gear, these clandestine agents targeted civilian populations in Hawaii, Alaska, New York, Florida, and California with experimental biological weapons. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's sad. Using trick suitcases and a 1954 Mercury equipped with dual mufflers and extended tailpipes, the spooks cast their clouds of plague along 4 New York City turnpikes and through the computer-choked Lincoln and Holland tunnels. Those conspiracy theorists aren't sounding too crazy about the planes in the sky now, are they? Huh? Chemtrails? Starting to sound a little, well, okay. Attacks on Florida were followed by an epidemic of whooping cough in which 12 persons died. 12, interesting number for them to use. In 1950, a secret biological warfare weapon launched from a Navy vessel blanketed San Francisco Bay. 30 years later, on learning of the experiment, victims responded with angry lawsuits against the government. Now, imagine that, your family member died from this, or, someone very important to you, and then, 30 years later, they're like, oh, yeah, we did that. I mean, I'm already seeing stuff on social media about 9/11. Were you injured? And it's it's been how long? These people don't care, right? They always come out with the solutions a little bit too late. They always come out with the truth a little bit too late because they're just keeping you on this constant, hanging little tassel. You're puppets to them, and it's a game. It's just a game for them. Government agents have injected thousands of unsuspecting Americans with germs such as syphilis, and similar incidents have occurred in Britain and the Soviet Union. Now that formerly secret biological warfare documents have been released after nearly 30 years at least, part of the grisly story can be told. What we can learn from the documents which the government is willing to release is just the tip of the invisible iceberg. The fact that innocent civilians have been victimized by their own governments, however, makes clear the threat posed by today's invisible technologies of war. So, that just basically is just telling you, they're using chemical and biological warfare. They're injecting people with diseases and stuff. So that really puts into perspective beforehand. And it's these things they're releasing on declassified documents. So it's why should we trust that the medicine you're giving us isn't still doing this? Because if anything, the government's only gotten more corrupt. So, all right. The next section. Microbiological Holocaust. Warriors have been busy developing biological warfare weapons since the prehistoric days, when shamans first poisoned their enemies. The memory of the political use of the disease during the Crusades and the Inquisition may have been too fresh in Hitler's mind to allow him to unleash the vast arsenal amassed by the Nazi scientists. And I want to point out something there. And this was in school, this is a PSYOP, the Holocaust PSYOP, and before you're like, oh my God, what? The reason I say that is because they push these parts of Hitler, but they don't mention how Hitler was actually using the Nazis to explore Antarctica. And he was looking for the actual mythological Thor's hammer. He was looking for civilization there. He was obsessed with Atlantis. And I can link a video below where I watched some really, really interesting stuff about that. And it's like, why didn't we know like all of this stuff that Hitler, I mean, he was doing some insane stuff that we never learned about in school. I mean, we didn't even really learn anything about Antarctica in school. So keep that in mind. The Japanese, however, had no such compunctions. After World War II, germ warfare trials were held which convicted a number of their war criminals. Those trials, even more sensational than the Nuremberg trials, got little attention from the press of the day. I wonder why. Biological warfare was next used during the Korean War, and then it was used in Vietnam. Perhaps the most hideous story is that of the leakage of the anthrax germs from weapons in the remote secret city of Semipalatinsk in the Soviet Union. There, just as a few years ago, hundreds died in horrible agony from anthrax germs created for the purpose of biological warfare. Current genetic developments in what is called recombinant DNA threaten to unleash mutant biological warfare strains from which the world may never recover. Despite an international treaty forbidding the use of biological warfare, some nations today are cheating, using it anyway. Well, hot dog, the government breaking the law, you wouldn't say. According to the recently released Pentagon documents, the Soviets may well have used both chemical and biological warfare weapons in Afghanistan. Okay, so it mentioned recombinant DNA, and I might be mispronouncing that, but I'm going to link some stuff below about that as well. That deserves a whole video on its own, but if you look into that, they have been, and for a long time, they're not hiding this, it just requires you to do your research. They have been actively trying to change our DNA, actively trying to change our biological makeup, which we look around the world today in society and they're actually succeeding. So this is something that they're working towards. Now, this next one, Rocky Mountain Plague, is something that I want anyone that's watching and listening to this to really pay attention to, because this is something that I was like, wow, if I can find this, and given I'm a researcher, I like to research, I like to look into stuff. If I was a terrorist trying to do something to the United States, this information is just here. Just find it online. And when I read it, you'll see what I mean. So it's just like, it's almost incredible to me that like they just release this stuff. It's like they just don't care about, anything at all. But okay, here we go. When the news of secret leaking Army wet-eye nerve gas canisters in Denver, Colorado was released, it sent shivers through the citizens of My House City. Would Denver be America's first Semipalatinsk? And you can look up what that is in Russia. I'll also link it below. I know I keep saying that and repeating myself, but I will link everything below because I want to make this super easy for y'all. When you watch this video, I don't want you to have to do tons of research of your own. So I'll link you things below so you know what these mean and you can kind of see. A controversy over how to dispose of the nerve gas bombs has raged over the past few years in Utah and Colorado. The U.S. government wanted to ship the bombs to a remote location in Utah since the task of neutralizing the bombs seemed impossible. The government announced that they would load the bombs on airplanes and fly them from Denver to the remote Utah location. No one wanted leaking bombs flown over the countryside. However, a loud protest arose. Today, those nerve gas bombs sit in a storage depot near busy Stapleton International Airport in Denver, oozing their toxic contents while legislators of Colorado and Utah battle Pentagon bureaucrats over the life and death question of what to do with the unwanted nerve gas. So there's barrels of nerve gas, which one exposure and you're dead, in Denver. They're in Denver, okay? And this was 1985. The Stapleton International Airport is now closed. The Denver airport is open, which there's a lot of speculation about the Denver airport. And when I read this, I was like, I wonder if the leaking gas has something to do with the oddness of the Denver airport. I digress. But if you just narrow down what storage unit was open around then and is still open, I mean, 2 + 2 = 4. Like, it doesn't, it's not very hard. So that's what I mean, where it's like, you have dangerous weapons just sitting in civilization, and it don't be like, well, this was up, people know. No, nobody knows this. So it's like, it's bad luck. So if you live in Denver, Colorado, and you're watching this, may the force be with you. No, don't be fearful. Don't be in that crisis mindset. Don't operate in that way. But you can be a little irritated. You can be. All right. So our next one is Wizards of Death. Like biological warfare, chemical warfare was first developed in ancient times, and it has been used in World Wars I and II, and in the Korean War, and in Vietnam. Disguised as a herbicide during Vietnam, the chemical warfare weapon on Agent Orange, for example, poisoned thousands of Americans. Today, those geese suffer from the after effects of the weapon, unable to receive adequate compensation from Uncle Sam. Now, I know that a lot of people know about Agent Orange. I actually know people that were affected from Agent Orange to this day. And they don't get anything from the government. The government doesn't help. And, that's a huge problem. The government doesn't care about soldiers. They go and cause them extreme PTSD. Soldiers come back unable to even function and know what's happening. And it's a really big problem. And it's just not seen as anything to the government because, it's just chess to them and we're pawns. That's really what it is. So, but they have, tons of money to just give to everyone else and in their pockets and things like that. But they can't help people that were damaged fighting their wars for them. In 1980, the Soviet Union attacked Afghan rebels with deadly Schumann nerve gas, mocking every treaty on the books. According to Lieutenant General Nikolai Chernov, the Soviets equipped every division of the army with TMS C5 decontaminant trucks. Soviet-led Warsaw Pact troops regularly conduct nerve gas war games using live weapons and deploying 100,000 chemical and biological warfare specialist troops. The United States maintains 3 million convulsion-causing sarin artillery shells, several thousand sarin bombs, and hundreds of thousands of gas landmines. Like, why do you need all that? Like, they just have so many weapons. Yet people are starving. Like, nerve gas weapons comprise 2/3 of the 150,000 tons of poison gas in the American arsenal. As they did with biological warfare, the CIA tested chemical warfare weapons on U.S. citizens, attacking hundreds of unsuspecting geese with BZ, a hallucinogen 100 times more powerful than LSD. It was difficult for the BZ victims to complain of after effects of the test, however, since BZ left the victims with amnesia. CIA intelligence expert John Stockwell resigned in horror after revelations of chemical warfare atrocities by the agency. And I'll link him below, too. He's a very interesting guy. You guys should probably know about him. Despite the protest of Stockwell and other men of conscience, a powerful lobby today demands reputation of all treaties outlawing germ and nerve gas weapons, which it doesn't matter if they outlaw it because and you've seen this already a few different times, they don't follow the law. These are just formalities to them. They're shaking hands and crossing fingers behind their back, they're not following any of these laws. So that's why I like to stress to people that when we're out protesting and we're doing these things, and I'm not saying, hey, don't stand up for what you believe in, do your thing, chicken wing, but they don't care. They will pass a law and still disobey it and go against it because that doesn't matter to them. These are just formalities for them to say. So if you sue them, they can say, well, all this, and they have all of their angles covered. But they're constantly breaking laws, breaking treaties. They don't care about that stuff. Chemical warfare development overlaps that of biological warfare in the growth of the new science of genetic engineering, which poses an even greater danger, though its invisibility, than does well-known and already predicted nuclear holocaust. And you see in here they're saying a nuclear holocaust is nothing compared to this invisible world war. So, give me a second. I'm going to have a message from our sponsor, and then we're going to get back to the rest of this document.
Aloha, my name is Shelby, and I am the founder of the world's first unvaccinated platform, Unjected. It was in the spring of 21 when we saw our families and friends line up to get vaccinated. We felt ostracized and alone for our beliefs to remain unvaccinated. And I wanted to give people a place to connect and feel safe to have partners or friends or business relationships with like-minded people who respect your medical freedom. Unjected is a platform for critical thinkers, for people who refuse to have the mRNA vaccine. It's for dating, community connections, and we even have directories for fertility and even blood match services.
Are you mad yet? Okay. And in my purpose with this, if anybody's wondering, like, what's my purpose with making these and putting this stuff out here? For one, because we deserve to know, period, point blank. And also because people should be enraged about this. We shouldn't just be okay with the fact that we're getting played constantly. And we've gotten into this bubble of, comfort, where it's like, oh, well, at least life's not that bad. We have this, and this. Yeah, but we're kind of living in a bubble. And the bubble is slowly closing in, and that's not saying things are going to get, so terrible or, that you need to be like freaking out. In fact, you need to do the opposite. You need to start taking control of your life and informing yourself. I hope that this video puts you on a research, role where you just start now looking up stuff for yourself and you start telling everybody else, because something that I want to stress before I get into the next part of this is when you're talking about checking your privilege, and you're like, oh, I'm so privileged. You're privileged because of other people in the communities, because of your fellow American citizens who work so hard to run this country, okay? The government creates more problems. The government is taking our money, taxing it tenfold, putting it all in their pockets. They're controlling the food. They're poisoning the water. I mean, they're making things worse. The only reason we even need government is so we can possibly protect the country or so we can have protection. But at this point, that's not even happening. So they have taken over every facet of existence, and it's like an operating gang. Everything that you have and that you enjoy about life comes from fellow civilians. It comes from the people that are working in these jobs. If people decided tomorrow, I don't want to go to work anymore, I don't want to do it, there goes everything. You think these government officials are going to go out and work? You think they're going to do anything? No. So it's about time that we stop arguing with each other and we start going against the government and we start looking at it in that way instead of all the fighting I see online between people, all the division I see between people. They like that stuff. They want you all to be divided because separation makes it easier for them to control us. The more you're in that fear state, the more that you've lowered your vibration, you're in survival mode, and you can go check my CRV video out about the declassified document, the less able you are to tap into your psychic abilities, tap into who you are. And the government knows this. That's how they keep us in this constant state. And the Schumann resonance, which is directly connected to our brain waves and our intelligence, is also affected by chaos. So when the world is in chaos, the world is going through it, it's affecting our intelligence. We're quite literally being put into like animalistic survival mode. So step back, be grateful for the people around you that work really hard. Understand that even if someone is not on the same level as you or doesn't know the same things, that we've all been duped, we've all been played, and it's not our faults. This is a long running thing, and it's not like these people just got into control. These These are families. You look at the people that are actually running government, it's families, generations of families that have been in power for a very long time. So you shouldn't be mad at each other. All right. So, mind control, the CIA Nazi connection. Clandestine wizards of the Cold War have searched for new technology to forcibly control the human mind for more than 40 years. At the close of World War II, when the leaders of Nazi and U.S. intelligence agencies joined forces to construct an allied intelligence network, the Nazi spy chief Reinhard Gehlen, the OSS William Donovan, and the FBI's J. Edgar Hoover all conspired to develop mind control weapons. Now, that comment about the Holocaust psyop that I made earlier is starting to make a little sense, huh? Yeah. Well. Hoover and Donovan, like their Nazi counterparts, commissioned leading psychiatrists in their nation to come up with the automation-making technology. Nazi research into mind control, which began during the 1920s at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, inspired the concentration camp atrocities of the infamous Joseph Mengele and others. American research in the years following World War II victimized Kalavesking World War II veterans. Now, if you're like watching this and you're like, how do these people know this? How's this Richard Sutton and da-da-da? One, these people are very tapped in. These guys, you look back and you look at them, you look them up and look at their credentials. They're very, very tapped in. I mean, Operation Mind Control alone is a game changer. And not only that, but the CIA released this stuff, guys. They released it. You can look this all up. They're not hiding it because that's kind of like the play of the narcissist mind game, which people throw the word narcissist around a lot. But a mind game of a narcissist is they will almost tell you the truth in stories. They'll reveal the truth in certain ways because it helps clear their conscience. So they're putting all this stuff out there. So like they can be like, well, we put it out there. You know, it's out there. Which they know people are too busy and stressed out to even read this stuff. Which is why I take one for the team. Okay. So, back at it. The Nazi inspiration for the CIA's mind control operations has recently been documented with the declassification of a project code named paperclip. Project Paperclip, if you're watching this and you're a lot like me and you went down the rabbit hole, you probably know exactly what that is. But if you don't, I will link that in the description as well so you can take a look for yourself. Paperclip evolved into a series of CIA projects using unsuspecting civilian guinea pigs. These included such code names as Bluebird, Artichoke, Midnight Climax, and the now infamous MKUltra. Documents related to these projects have revealed that America's most respected, influential psychiatrists conspired to unleash mind control weapons on unsuspecting Americans and succeeded. So, rerun that back. They did it on unsuspecting civilian guinea pigs. So a lot of times you'll look at these documents and they do the testing, and a lot of the people they do the testing on, they acquired in ways that we don't even want to know about, you know. But sometimes they just do them on people without people knowing, you know. And it's an experiment of theirs to see how things work. So what makes you think that they've stopped that? They haven't. In fact, it's only gotten worse. One of their biggest tests is something that mostly everybody uses, and it's something you're using right now because you're watching me, and it's social media. You know, I don't know if YouTube would count as that, but social media is definitely a way for them to see like how people react and how they can control the public and how they can inform. I mean, they can use it as like a way to understand how they can get information out. So, American Frankenstein. Since the days of ancient China's legendary warlord Sun Tzu, mind control has been the most sought-after military weapon. Mind control techniques were developed and refined through the succeeding civilizations of India, China, Egypt, the Mayan Empire, Greece, Rome, medieval Europe, Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, Red China, and finally, the United States. So that's why, like, when people try to, like, back up things, like, well, these Greek people said, or these people, don't get me wrong, my favorite philosopher ever is Greek, is Socrates. And there's some really incredible and smart minds in all these places. But keep in mind, just because they were ancient doesn't mean that they were not still trying to mess with you. So mind psyops have been a long running thing. So you just gotta be vigilant, use your gut, do lots of research, and just be humble about it. Always be willing to listen to somebody, be corrected, things like that. Some of the more widely used methods of mind control have included sexual manipulation, drug hypnosis, behavior modification, and assorted other methods which control an individual's freedom of thought. Despite earlier denials, the CIA did successfully brainwash Americans. Psychiatry. Institutional psychiatry has become an instrument of civilian control of the modern state. Mind control police tactics have completely replaced the criminal justice system in the Soviet Union. Behind the Iron Curtain, where intolerable conditions would otherwise spark revolt, psychiatric techniques have turned the Soviet population into a herd of terrified and apathetic automations with high technology. Soviet mind control employed against political dissidents to silence them permanently. And I'm purposely not gonna go back and take any of my tripping over words out of this, because I really love being authentic and showing you kind of my reactions, when I'm reading this, because even though I've read this probably 10 times, I still just I'm sickened by some of the things that I read in it. So when I trip over my words, it's often because I'm just kind of my goodness. In the United States, the mental health industry has been operating for many years on Soviet-type plans to replace the American justice system with mind control operations. Now this is where it starts getting interesting. Not that it hasn't been, but this is going to be some of the parts of this that's probably going to resonate more with people who are watching this. Electromagnetic mind control. Protected by the general public's unwillingness to believe that such things can actually happen, Soviet forces have been beaming invisible microwave radiation at Americans for more than 20 years, mysteriously triggering cancer, heart problems, cataracts, and emotional stress. Protected by the general public's unwillingness to believe that such things can happen. The bizarre Soviet zapping of the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, an incident which has been known as the Moscow Signal, may well have been the opening volley of the invisible war of electromagnetic weaponry. Now, if you're not aware, we ourselves are electromagnetic. And there's a feminine and masculine balance within both of those as well. The the magnetic, makes up who we are and our abilities and things like that and how we function with the earth. In 1962, while sweeping the embassy for bugs, American security personnel detected a microwave beam aimed straight at the embassy. Naturally, the Pentagon and the intelligence community became alarmed at the possibility of neurological and behavioral effects on diplomatic personnel. Oh, God. Well, the normal citizens are okay, but not our diplomats. While keeping the knowledge of the microwave beam secret from the suffering embassy staff for 12 years, see 12 again? Number 12? The CIA launched a project codenamed Pandora, which was aimed at understanding the Soviets' motives for the microwave attack. And, I just had a thought, too. What if the media really, really paints Russia in a bad light because they got a lot of the techniques they use on us from Russia? So they it's very interesting. Pandora personnel discovered that the Soviets had been conducting extensive microwave research operations for years, and that they had concentrated their studies on the emotional and mental effect of microwaves. By the summer of 1965, a Pentagon-affiliated think tank called the Institute for Defense Analysis convened a special task force to replicate Soviet experiments and analyze the problem. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, known as DARPA, which I'm sure some of you have heard that name before, then began experimenting on rhesus monkeys with microwaves at Walter Reed Army Research Institute. The results are still classified top secret, but from what recent duplicate studies we learned that microwaves cause profound effects on the central nervous system and change behavior of rhesus monkeys. So, and this is why, it's going to go into even more about microwaves, but this is why, if you're using a microwave right now, stop. Do not use microwave. Microwaves are so terrible. And the thing is when you're reading this, you realize the government knows that. They know how bad microwaves are, yet they don't even advertise for microwaves anymore. They're usually put in apartments. They're at almost every restaurant uses microwaves. I mean, you would think if you were leading a country and you knew that this certain device was causing cancer, all these really terrible things, that you would completely outlaw it. Microwaves are illegal, we can't use those. Why would they do that? They're making too much money off cancer. At the summit meeting of Glassboro, New Jersey, during June 1967, President Lyndon Johnson asked Soviet Premier Alexa Kosygin to halt the Moscow signal. In 1969, leading microwave scientists gathered at the University of Virginia Medical College at Richmond for a 3-day symposium on biological effects and health implications of microwave radiation. They have whole symposiums on this, y'all. Come on now. Microwave authority Dr. Carol Mahar of Shlisveskia declared that microwave bioeffects included pains in the head and eyes, fatigue of overall weaknesses, dizziness and vertigo, poor night's sleep, irritability, fear, hypochondria, tension, depression, inhibition of intellectual functions, and decreased memory. Yet, most of those at the symposium ignored the dangers of human bioeffects. Because all those things keep you in that lower state. Research biophysicist Dr. Alan H. Frey was more than interested. However, Frey had determined that humans could actually hear pulsed microwaves frequencies ranging from 300 to 3,000 megahertz. The news starts to leak. It was not until syndicated columnist Jack Anderson broke the Moscow signal story in 1972 that the public began to learn the truth. Several months after Anderson's microwave column ran, the Soviets accused the U.S. of irradiating chess wizard Boris Spassky with electronic devices, causing him to lose a championship match to Bobby Fischer. On February 7, 1976, the Los Angeles Times quoted U.S. Ambassador Walter J. Stossel Jr. as telling his staff that the microwaves could cause leukemia, skin cancer, cataracts, and various forms of emotional illness. Stossel himself was reportedly suffering from mysterious illness resembling leukemia, which caused nausea and bleeding in the eyes. 2 of his predecessors at the embassy died of cancer. According to the National Security Advisor, Schumann Brevezinski, these Russian names are hard to pronounce, U.S. embassy personnel in Moscow suffer the highest cancer rate in the world. Today, despite a brief respite, the bombardment of the embassy continues, while much of this evidence gathered by U.S. intelligence agencies remains classified. However, raising the lid on Project Pandora has uncovered a box full of secrets about microwave effects. And, in here, it, mentions how, a couple of times, even this was released in, 1980s, but, it talks about in 1972, they broke a story, Jack Anderson broke the story about the Moscow signal, and people were shocked. And then you look at today, and, nobody even knows this. Nobody even thinks about it. It's because they have perfected the art of amnesia. They've perfected the art of making people forget. And so you just are forgetting and forgetting. That's why now, as the awakening, the enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, is starting to get thicker and more people are starting to wake up to things. They're starting to see things. It's starting to become apparent to people no. We're not just going to move past that and forget that. Do you guys not remember what happened 2 years ago? But you'll notice a pattern with the government and these politicians that they like to just pretend things didn't happen. They just like to forget it and move on. And it's because that's what they rely on. They rely on you forgetting. But they don't realize that people are getting better at remembering things. So, if you look at the people running for president right now, and I'm going to actually make a separate video on my thoughts about all the candidates, you'll notice all of them in the past like 3-4 years had things that they did that were terrible, or they have affiliations when they were younger, tons of different things, but like now they're just like a completely changed different person. And it's not that I'm not saying you can't change. You absolutely can, but you've got to understand this is the government and these people have something to gain. It's not like they're changing because they're like, I just want you to believe in me, man. No, they're just like, don't think about that. Just don't think about when I did that. Just pay attention to this, you dumb person. You know, they kind of like rely on us to be stupid because they think that we're just brainwashed little idiots that they can just play with the lives of. I mean, I lost my grandma from cancer. I know tons of people who have lost family members, friends from cancer, and it's like this is just a joke to them. I mean, they don't care about this stuff. The Eugene Wavelength. A powerful radio signal that may be affecting human health has been monitored in several Eugene locations, and in the air 3,000 feet above the city, proclaimed the Eugene Register Guard on March 26, 1978. The source of the radio signal is unknown. Thus did Eugene, Oregon, become the first major population center to suffer the effects of electromagnetic biohazards. Shortly before the Register Guard printed the story, a middle-aged Eugene man named Walter Depotsky came down with symptoms remarkably similar to those attributed to the microwave sickness. He noted a strange vibration emanating from within his home. He heard voices. He could not sleep. He suffered burning of his cornea. University of Oregon industrial hygienist Marshall Van Ert called upon to investigate Depotsky's complaints. It found that he suffered the same symptoms while in the man's home. Disturbed, Van Ert recruited several local engineers to investigate. The engineers measured an unusual radio signal which they determined to be capable of producing potential biohazards. After unsuccessfully dodging public health agencies to investigate the matter further, Van Ert broke the story in the papers. The Eugene signal was described as a radio frequency pulse at 4.75 megahertz. It was recorded within at least 2 local homes and at 3,000 feet above the city. The signal strength was rated at 500,000 watts, 10 times the Federal Communications Commission radio license limit. The signal extended as far as the next town, Corvallis. So, the Eugene signal, the Eugene wavelength, is a very interesting story because to this day they say they have no idea where it came from, which we don't believe these people because y'all liars. But they said they have no idea where this came from, but it was, you know, the signal was so pulsating that it caused all these health problems. And that's why, like, sound is absolutely a weapon. And I remember a few months ago when the check on the phone, I can't for the life of me think of the name of it, was going to go off. And they're like, oh, we're just testing on the phones. And people were saying, hey, you know, be careful when you hear that sound because sound can be used as a weapon. It can affect you. It can affect your body. And I saw people just laughing at it, thinking it was a joke. And it's like, sound is absolutely used. You have no idea the effects and implications that sound at the right hertage can have on you. In fact, it is everything. It is almost the makeup of the universe itself. So to think that sound isn't being used as a weapon and that it can't really mess with you is naive. And I mean, there's so much information out there about how sound can and can alter you. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that the whole testing alert that the government was doing could affect us. I mean, and I had my phone off during that time, but I know people that had it on and I did hear it. You know, I heard people play it. That sound was not pleasant. It wasn't exactly like a pleasant alert sound. So, you know, I don't trust these people at all. I don't trust what they're doing. I don't trust what they're trying with sound. And they definitely know its power. After receiving 150 documented complaints about the signal, Governor Bob Schraub, Senator Mark Hatfield, and Congressman Jim Weaver were prompted to demand an Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, investigation. A data analysis by the State Health Department's Radiation Control Section determined that there was probable cause linking the complaints to the strange frequency. Said Clifford Schrock, a Textronic Inc. radio frequency analyst who had written electronic manuals for the CIA and the National Security Agency. I was surprised. I'd never seen anything like it before. Reactions to the story flooded in from around the world. Calls came in from people who had similar stories to tell about their own distant areas. Several calls came in from technicians offering their hypothesis about the signal, suggesting a possible link to the secret weapons radiation. The people of Eugene began to learn about the electromagnetic radiation EMR biohazards in a hurry. No one, however, could get to the bottom of Eugene's problem. The FCC Enforcement Division Assistant Chief Richard Smith flatly attributed the frequency to a naval transmitter at Dixon, California, nicknamed the Dixon Duck. Van Oort and others disputed this conclusion. The Navy denied that the Dixon Duck was responsible. When the EPA technicians finally arrived, however, they proclaimed that the mysterious signal did not exist at all. Van Oort, Schrock, and others who had felt the signal and measured it strongly disagreed with them, but the EPA investors held press conferences at which they discredited the reports of the strange Eugene signal and promptly returned to the Las Vegas headquarters where they refused to speak to reporters. So that's why you don't take press releases serious. I see like people being like, well, see, they said it wasn't a threat. They're telling you what you want to hear. They're just like, no, that is not real. Everybody shut up and keep doing what you're doing. Like, don't worry about that. That's basically what they're saying. After this, the investigation folded altogether. The Eugene signal remains an official mystery. Although the people of Eugene didn't know it, both the U.S. and Soviet military had been working for years to perfect the use of electromagnetic frequencies as lethal physiological weapons. You hear that? So they came in and they said, this isn't real. This isn't happening, all while their fingers are crossed behind their back and we're doing secret tests about this. Keep on hush hush. It's ridiculous. Similar symptoms reported in such places as Timmins and Kirtland Lake in Canada were traced to a notorious Soviet radio broadcast dubbed by amateur radio operators the Woodpecker. These effects bear a strong resemblance to the biohazards inherent to the invisible weapons like the electromagnetic pulse, EMP, under development by the Pentagon. And so keep in mind, like a common theme through this is like they keep blaming Russia and they're like, Russia did it. We see that happening today. And it's like, no, you guys did it. You guys are doing it. Our own country. Like, the call's coming from inside the house, bro. You guys are doing it. So why are you acting like, stop pointing fingers. Like, you're doing it to us. You don't care about us. You guys are running a freaking gang. Taking our money, taking our food, poisoning our water, poisoning our minds, killing our friends, family. Like, come on now. Before I pop off, just... Okay. So if you live in Oregon, Eugene, Oregon, or near, and you've heard any kind of weird stuff, any kind of weird pulsating sounds, things like that you can't explain, comment, hit me up, let me know, because I'd love to hear your firsthand experience. I believe you. Okay? This stuff is no joke. The Woodpecker. On October 14th, 1976, radio communications throughout the globe were disrupted by powerful radio waves emanating from the Soviet Union. The broadcast appeared irregularly and varied between very high and very low frequencies. When the U.S., Canada, Great Britain, and the Scandinavian countries protested the broadcast, the Soviets apologized, blaming the disturbance on experiments. After this, the nature of the wavelengths changed, and huge electromagnetic standing waves formed thousands of miles long, penetrating the Earth and extending into the ionosphere. Yeah, you heard that right. Because of its characteristic sound, the signal was dubbed the Woodpecker. I'll link that below. The sound, which ham radio operators heard all over the world, sounded like the tapping of a pencil on a table at between 8 and 14 times a second. The wavelength was traced to alleged experiments in the Soviet cities of Rig and Gomel. The standing waves accompanying these experiments stretched down both coasts of North America and along the eastern frontier of the Soviet Union. The Woodpecker has been blamed for subsequent shifts in weather patterns resulting from altered trade winds, which I'm going to do a video on this. It's on my list. They're altering the weather. Okay? Geoengineering, cloud seeding. Yeah. I have a whole video that I'm going to do on that. And let's just say it's quite interesting. Quite interesting, okay? Several agencies fear that such standing waves might well have caused a disintegration of ships, including oil tankers, in the Atlantics. Oh, and I didn't read this part. I skipped it. The change of winds created a drought in the western United States with severe effects on farming and the U.S. economy. That's important to read as well. But the potential effect of these standing waves on human beings is cause for much greater concern. Just as the human body's nervous system operates electromagnetically, so the Earth has an electromagnetic sphere which scientists claim can be altered to produce dramatic weather shifts. Here we go. So this is like Schumann resonance, like, you know, because the Earth is alive. It's like it's living, and we are connected to it. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Avatar, but the way that it connected their tails to the trees and stuff, that's essentially how we can connect. We don't even have to connect anything. We just can tap into it. But we can't be stressed and like overwhelmed and being poisoned with microwaves and, you know, psychological warfare and things like that. In fact, the Earth's ionosphere oscillates at approximately the same frequency as human brainwaves, making it a perfect carrier off of which electromagnetic radiations in the brainwave range can be bounced without any change of frequency. That's the Schumann resonance. So, and if you look that up, which a lot of people surprisingly don't know about the Schumann resonance, you can actually get an app too where you can track it and see what it's at. I have that app. The Schumann resonance, like I said earlier in the video, it controls our brainwaves. So when it's altered, our brainwaves are altered and our intelligence is altered. And they're doing tons of weather experiments and completely changing the planet. So when you see the planet going out of whack, which I have a few theories about that, why there's tons of like natural disasters happening, keep in mind, like, this isn't climate change, right? Like, the climate's always changing. It's always going to change. The planet's always going to be fine. It's going to make sure it takes care of itself. These things are happening because they are drastically altering the weather. And when I do the video I have on the documents where they talk about all the geoengineering and all that stuff that they did, y'all are just going to be like, what? Like, seriously. Yeah. The relationship between the electromagnosphere and the electromagnetic basis of the human body can be exploited as a strategic weapon. Yeah, you heard that right. They're using your own planet against you. Everyone has experienced mental and emotional shifts during changes of weather. Imagine the power open to those who, by flicking a switch, could control the Earth's atmosphere and change not only the weather, but the brainwaves of entire populations. Both the U.S. and Soviet governments know that a strong pattern exists correlating geophysical phenomena and political disturbances, health, and mood swings. For these reasons, the Woodpecker signal alarmed the U.S. intelligence community. And that is the end of this document. It goes on to say Operation Mind Control went out of print almost as soon as it appeared in the bookstores. Not only did this phenomenon happen in the U.S., it happened to editions published in the United Kingdom, France, Holland, and Japan as well. And they have photocopies of it. I have it on PDF. I have a lot of things on PDF. I'll give you guys a hookup. And if you watch this and you can't access it when I link it below, I'll email it to you or something like that. Again, Operation Mind Control is a huge book. So, I mean, it's giant and it takes a long time to read. I haven't even read all of it, but just even the first few paragraphs are, I mean, it's intense, you know, because these things are happening all the time. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Comment below what parts stood out to you. I know for me, the parts that really stood out was the fact that there's like poisonous, fatal nerve gas still somewhere in Denver that can easily be located if you just narrow it down to a certain space, you know, and the microwaves. The fact that microwaves, it's very well known that the microwave itself is extremely poisonous to us. And if you just look up microwaves, because the microwave is named after microwave, a small wave, because that's what it's doing. It's microwaving your food. If you just look that up and see like the microwave itself, like 2 words, the microwave itself and what they can do with that, I mean, it's just absolutely insane. And these things aren't weapons they're using to wage war on each other. They're using it to wage war on us. Because at the end of the day, all the governments and whomever else is behind it pulling the strings, they all get along. They all are working together. It's us everyday people that aren't in the club. So they're not attacking each other. No, they don't want to do that. You know, they have, I'm not going to go into the bloodlines, into things about them, but they have nepotism beliefs where they truly think that they are better than us. They really do. They really think that they're better than us. Their kids are better than us. They think they deserve things more. And they think that they should have access to this information more than us. I mean, I don't even believe that the Alexandria Library, that all this stuff burned down. I think that they still have access to that information. I think they have access to a lot of information that they say they don't anymore because they're just hoarding it. They're hoarding it away because they don't want people to become aware. Because the more that we become aware and the more educated we become, the more we read, the more we understand, the more we don't need them. And the more we can actually function on our own and do things on our own and can become a better society. Because at the end of the day, we don't need them. We're already running the society on our own. And the more that we get awakened to these things, the more that we come together, the more powerful we're going to be. So I think it's absolutely essential that we take that and realize we all have a common enemy and that none of these politicians or government officials are here to help you. No one wants to actually make things better for you. That's why now the truth is being used as a weapon. And these things, that's why the CIA declassifies documents every 20 years. So they sit on this when it's prevalent, when they need to talk about it, and then they release it later when it's like, wow, people have already died and this has been terrible. That's what government officials are doing, the politicians are doing right now. Like all of these big grand claims that they're making when they're debating and stuff, like the one that came out about, climate change isn't real. Oh yeah, they'll say those things, but they won't mention the geoengineering and the cloud seeding. And, they'll only mention half-truths, so you think that they're on your side and they're actually fighting with you. And in reality, these are all people that come from rich families, military families. They all know each other. Whether they're backstabbing each other or not, doesn't matter. They're all against us. And they're just saying things so they can get your mind. It's a war for the mind of man. And they're not dumb. That's why social media is a weapon, because they see the comments. They see what people are saying. They see what people are thinking. And they're just mimicking you. They're mimicking what you're thinking. They're putting it out there and they're making a joke of you. And you're like, oh my God, they're here to help us. No, they're not. Especially if they have millions of dollars and they have tons of companies and all of that. They're absolutely not here to help you. They just want power. That's what everybody's after. They want power. They want control. They don't even want money. Like, people are like, oh, they want money. They can print money. They have access to infinite money. They have access to things like that. So they just really need your consent. They need people to be on their side. And if they get enough people that do what they want, that's all they need, So you probably want to start talking to your conspiracy theorist friend. Learning some more. And don't get me wrong, there are some crazy stuff out there. There's some things I've heard where I was like, oh my gosh, this is how wacko. But, there's for every, I'd say one really crazy idea, there's 5 that are completely based in validity. And I remember before I even posted my control remote viewing video, I actually saw people talking to me saying, control remote viewing is not real. That's not real. Huh? And you heard it in this document yourself. They rely on people not believing that these things exist. They rely on that. That's why the CIA itself coined the term conspiracy. They want you to think, oh, that's a conspiracy. I mean, you hear all the time, that's a conspiracy. They want you to think that. So it's not even in your mind. It's not even your realm of thought. And that way they can keep fooling you. But, yeah, so that's it for this document. Really hope you guys liked it. And by liked it, I mean absolutely hated it. I'm going to be doing more videos. I have tons of stuff that I want to talk about and things that I want to discuss. And you're probably looking at this and you're thinking oh, is there a rebranding or something? There was. And I'm going to be posting a video about that as well. I'm going to kind of go into the rebranding, why I rebranded, and just a little bit about it so you guys can kind of know where my head's at. And yeah, I really hope that when you watch these videos, it kind of gives you a new outlook, because we're all fighting each other. And I think we just really need to take a pause and understand that we're just helping them at this point when we fight each other. We're just helping them. So be sure to like, subscribe to keep up with more. And as always, keep it pointy.